So let's talk about referrals. I'm Lanissa Brantley, and I'm here today with Kristina from Sophrona, and we are diving into the topic of referrals today. Physician referrals specifically, and why does that matter to your practice? We all know that refractive is down, and people are wondering what a practice can do about it. And one of the things your practice can do about it is get more physician referrals. And how can you do that? Go talk to referring doctors and tell them your practice story. And then once those referrals come in, how do you not lose those referrals? And one of the first things that I always tell practices is get an online referral tool so that you're not losing those referrals. Kristina, I know that we've talked a lot about the different data out there, like what referrals are being lost and what practices are missing as far as revenue. What are your thoughts about that?
I think the most shocking thing at a recent user group I was at, we did a scavenger hunt with all the vendors who were there. And the question we posed is, what percentage of referrals do you think you're losing in your practice?
Mm-hmm.
And 90% of them had no idea or guessed really low. And in actuality, it's more than 50% of those referrals. And
wow.
You can just imagine, I mean, the cost it takes you to market, to get a referral, to get a patient in your door, but you're already just handing 50% of them away because you're not making sure they get scheduled, or you don't have a process in place to make sure that they're scheduled, they're reached, they're called, or you don't have some way for your referring providers to schedule them online. All those things contribute to that. And I think that the dollars that wind up being lost because we're not really looking at what's the value of that referral is another subject that we've talked about a lot. Because we both are very dedicated to not losing referrals and helping your team do that. So I think what was it, about $200,000 a year they're missing out on?
Well, I mean, at least, I mean, that's just kind of a conservative number. When we were kind of just playing around with the math, we were just thinking like just one referral a week that wasn't getting scheduled. If you're thinking like about national average is about $4,000 LASIK procedure or $4,000 for an upgraded cataract procedure. So if you just have one patient a week that's not getting scheduled, that's close to $200,000 a year that you're missing. But you're telling me that the data suggests more than 50% of referrals aren't getting scheduled. So our number was pretty conservative, I think. And so that's a huge number that practices are missing just by not getting patients scheduled. And I don't think people are aware of it. And I don't think it's intentional, right? I think people are just busy, right? Our staff are busy. Our practices are busy. We've got lots going on. Everybody's wearing multiple hats. And so like, what is the solution really to this problem? And on the flip side, not only are we, losing all this revenue, like, are there ways that we can stop the bleeding, but also like flip that script so that we're generating revenue because we're getting more referrals in the door, and also we're not losing the referrals that we have, and so we're actually getting more revenue. So we have lots of thoughts about that. We could talk about that all day, but it's astounding to me when you think about like what is the opportunity out there available to practices, and then what are practices actually losing and missing out on.
Well, I think sometimes too, practices, right? The big thing is we don't have time to deal with what we have now. How are we going to send someone out to go get us more? How are we going to work through that? And I think that's where, when you use an online tool such as our referral portal, we know you're going to be able to schedule patients faster and more efficiently, on average about 80% faster. So one of the things you want to think about is, so we want to get what type of a workflow can we put together to process these referrals and make sure we're creating a great experience? I think that's the thing that's hard, for not to lose, is that patients don't want to feel like cattle. They don't want to feel like they're just on an assembly line. And they want to make sure that there's a good relationship between the referring provider and the specialist they're being referred to. Because I think that's another thing that really they're not happy with, right? If they get referred to someone and they're used to this warm and fuzzy, ophthalmologist, optometrist they're going to, and now you send them to somewhere that they're not happy. And I think that's critical too, because your liaison, as they go out and build those relationships, you'll end up, instead of, I think we've joked about, right? You're not fishermen. You don't want to cast a big wide net and just bring everything in and then hope something, you get some few lobsters out of that. What we're really looking to do, right, is to focus on building those strong relationships to drive those referrals in, save marketing dollars, and create efficiencies for your staff. I think that's from one of the things I hear a lot of. Unhappy patients are never good.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants unhappy patients. No surgeon wants an unhappy patient, and no referring doctor wants an unhappy patient in their chair that's had a bad experience with a doctor that they've referred to. You said something just a minute ago. You talked about a liaison, and I'd love to talk a little bit more about that, because a lot of practices are using what we call a physician liaison, and it's been very, very effective for their practice. But I think that there's some practices that still aren't aware of a liaison, or what a liaison is, or what a liaison does. And so, let's talk a little bit about that. And in your experience, what is a physician liaison? And we can both talk about that, and we've both kind of been in those shoes. And then what are you seeing out there with the practices that are utilizing physician liaisons, or utilizing them well, and how's that going for them?
So from my days of doing what I love to refer to as the muffin run, because as part of my job, building a surgical center and going out and really building relationships while monitoring offices, it was always a lot of fun to meet these practices and kind of build that rapport with them. I think my most successful clients are those that do have liaisons in place, and that they've built a process and they've built a way to monitor the process. And again, I think it goes back to having a plan, a strategic plan about how you go at it, and then dedicating a liaison to helping develop those relationships and bring in those referrals. And it has to be dedicated, because as we've talked about, every practice administrator has a fireman's hat. You've got the best laid out plan of the day. You're going to go in, you're going to get this done, that done, and the next thing you know, put your fire chief hat on, because now maybe you're working up a patient, or your insurance billing needs, whatever it could be. I've done it all, from running the laser to scheduling, whatever. You do what you have to do to help your practice. And I think that's fine as an administrator or in other areas. It's kind of that collapsing defense philosophy where everyone goes to take care of what needs to get taken care of. And that's because it's patient driven. But when it comes to a liaison, they need that dedicated time so that they can go out and not just make the initial touch, but to make multiple touches. I think what Lanissa has shared with me and educated me on is that that has to be someone who's used to getting told no to. And that is definitely someone with a thick skin. Not all of us can take 7 to 17 no's.
Yeah.
But I think they also have to be the same type of person that is good at managing the process and making sure they have regular touch bases with those. So even if they've gotten past the 17 no's and now we're getting referrals from them, they still have to be that same person that can make sure. You can't go out and visit a practice once every 6 months and expect them to keep your practice top of mind to refer to. And that's where the liaison is a critical role for the success of your practice.
Right. Yeah. So that's exactly it. The physician liaison is someone who goes out and shares your practice message with referring physicians on a regular routine basis. And if you're not at a point right now in your practice to have a full-time liaison, that's okay. Some people think that, oh, I just can't do this and I can't be successful at this because I don't have a full-time liaison right now. I would just encourage you to start where you are. Start with what you have. Find someone in the practice who can go out 1 or 2 days a week. Now, I would tell you, like Kristina said, we all get busy, and we all, get caught up, and we have to put on our fireman's hat, and we have all these things that happen. So I will tell you that time has to be protected. Whatever you decide that time is going to be for that person, those days have to be protected, or they'll never get out. But you can start where you are. And if you think about it, sometimes we think we have to have everybody in our market referring to us for this to be successful. But if you think about it, remember that one patient a week that we were losing. Well, if we gain that one patient a week, it's $200,000 a year. So if we think that we can't afford to focus on this, well, we kind of can't afford not to. But also, if you think about it, if you think about 5 referring doctors, just 5 in your market, you don't have to get your whole market, 5 referring doctors, if they send 5 patients a month, 25 patients times 2 eyes, that's, potentially 50 procedures a month. So it doesn't even have to be a significant number of referring doctors sending a massive amount of patients to dramatically change the surgical volume and the revenue in your practice. So when we say, let's talk about referrals, there is a reason we are so passionate about this topic. And we are passionate about it because we know the value that it can bring to you and your practice.
And I think that's really important. I'm someone who likes to have everything thrown at me all at once and let's just get it, go to it. So I think one of the things that's really important to remember is it is building blocks. And it's okay if you don't have it all in place. And whatever you do today will be better than what you did yesterday. And I think that's something that Lanissa's reminded me of as we've talked through, our different experiences and how you can start with something small and just let it blossom. So again, it's building blocks. It's figuring out where you're at today and, finding that liaison that's going to help you get to where you want to be a year from now, 6 months from now, whatever that goal may be.
Right. So getting started today looks like getting an online referral tool so that you can see when those referrals are coming in and get them scheduled quickly. Establishing who that physician liaison is going to be for your practice so that they can go out and share your practice message with referring doctors. And then making sure that you have some sort of process in place to capture those referrals. That's the starting point. And so it does not have to be a complex, crazy system. It can be that simple. And then it's time to execute.
Right, just a little net instead of a big net.
Yeah. So we are here to help you and help you execute in any way that we can. We're here to support you and support your practice. And so we would love, if you have any questions, for you to just reach out to us.